Every year, the British government pays the royal family more than £130 million. Taxpayer money. And every year, the same argument erupts. Why is the public funding this family of billionaires out of its own pocket? But here's the point almost nobody understands. That money isn't really a gift. It's a payment. The return on a deal made more than 250 years ago by a king drowning in debt. And the deal is so strange that everyone you ask says something different. Either the smartest bargain in British history or the greatest financial illusion the monarchy has ever pulled off. To understand where the royal family's money truly comes from, set aside everything you've seen in the media, because the real answer isn't a single source. It's three. And the first one isn't even, strictly speaking, theirs. Let's start with the number everyone fights over. It's called the sovereign grant. This year, it's set at around £132 million. It's the largest sum the monarchy officially receives, and it's paid straight out of the state's coffers. In other words, out of our taxes. From the outside, it looks exactly like the critics say. The public is literally funding the luxury of a palace. But trace the money backwards, and you'll find yourself in the year 1760. Back then, George III sat on the throne, and he controlled the vast lands and estates belonging to the crown, what's known as the Crown Estate. But the king had a big problem. He was swimming in debt with no cash in hand. So he sat down and made a deal with the government. He handed over all the income from these vast lands to the state, and in return, he received a fixed annual salary to cover the costs of the monarchy. That deal, with minor tweaks, has been ticking along ever since. The millions paid out today are really just a continuation of that old arrangement. And now we come to the detail that flips the whole picture. Those lands, the Crown Estate, still exist. Today, the total value of the Crown Estate, all of these properties, is around £15.5 billion. London's most exclusive streets, a huge chunk of the West End, are part of it. Nearly half the coastline of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland answers to it. Even the seabed stretching for miles around the country belongs entirely to this system. For a long time, nobody really cared about that seabed, not until the offshore wind industry exploded. Energy giants raced against each other to build wind farms out in the middle of the sea. But to do that, they first had to lease the seabed. And who owns that seabed? The Crown Estate, of course. The result was genuinely staggering. Thanks purely to this wind power frenzy, the Crown Estate posted a record profit of £1.1 billion in a single year. Now let's be straight with each other. Even the anti-monarchists agree on this one. The king doesn't take that money and drop it straight into his personal account. The Crown Estate is run by a completely independent board. Neither King Charles nor any other family member can interfere with what goes on inside, or take a single penny of the profit directly. Every last penny goes first to the state's coffers, to the treasury. That yearly share the monarchy receives from the state, it's calculated as a set percentage of that total profit. Which is why, in the year the Crown Estate broke its record, the share landing in the royal coffers suddenly jumped by nearly £50 million out of nowhere. And this is exactly where the big argument begins. Here, the two sides go at each other, hard. The royalists lay out a very simple logic. The Crown Estate left £1.1 billion in the state's coffers. In return, the royal family took just $130 million. Look at it that way, and the monarchy isn't a burden on the public's back at all. It's literally earning the country billions, meaning the allowance the state hands over is a drop in the ocean next to what the royals hand back. To them, that 1760 deal was a stroke of genius that still finances an entire nation to this day. But there's another side to the coin. Critics look at the exact same numbers and see a completely different game. Anti-monarchy groups like Republic, for instance, say this whole story is one big fairy tale. Their argument is this: those vast lands were never Charles's personal property to begin with, so he could hardly have generously donated them to the state. Those estates don't belong to Charles the man. They belong to the seat he sits in, which is to say, to the state itself. So handing the state's own property back to the state and then saying, "We made a fair trade," is, to the anti-monarchists, pure smoke and mirrors, a sleight of hand. And these groups go even further. Once you factor in the royals' security costs, local council spending, and the other hidden public expenses that never make it onto the official figures, they claim the monarchy's true annual cost to the public climbs above £500 million. They point out that Charles's coronation alone took an estimated $72 million out of the public's pocket. So, which is it really? Is the monarchy a genuine bargain for the country, or a colossal bill wrapped in a brilliant disguise? Keep that question in the back of your mind, because that yearly allowance from the state was only the first of those three sources we mentioned. The real show starts now, because the next two sources are where the royal family's true private fortune lies, the one they answer to no one for. Let's set aside that official allowance from the state, because in the background there are two centuries-old mega estates that work very differently. They're called duchies. The first is the Duchy of Lancaster, a vast empire of land and property worth around £679 million, and it belongs directly to whoever sits on the throne. Right now, King Charles. Its whole reason for existing is to give the king a private income of his own, independent of the state. Last year alone, these properties dropped a net £24 million into Charles's pocket. The second is the Duchy of Cornwall, established all the way back in 1337 to fund the next in line to the throne, the heir. It's worth more than £1 billion and belongs to whoever holds the title Duke of Cornwall. Right now, that's Prince William. And last year, that same estate earned nearly £23 million for William's coffers too. Now this is money that's private in the truest sense. The family keeps this profit entirely to itself, spends it however it likes, and here's the strange part. They aren't even required to tell the public exactly where that money goes. A closed box. But these duchies also hold the single most explosive detail in this entire financial system. These properties have such a peculiar legal status that both duchies completely skip the enormous corporation tax and income taxes that ordinary companies are forced to pay. In other words, legally, they don't have to pay a single penny in tax. And this leads us straight to the question everyone's most curious about. Does the royal family pay tax? The short, clear answer: they have no legal obligation whatsoever, but if they feel like it, they pay a bit. Completely voluntary, in other words. There isn't a single law forcing the king or the heir to pay tax on that duchy income. But since 1993, the king and his heir have voluntarily paid income tax to the state on both this estate income and their personal investments. I'll say it again, of their own free will. Not, of course, on those millions in allowance they get from the state for official duties, only on their own private duchy profits. Royal supporters say this shows just how well-meaning the family is, and that they do more than their fair share. The anti-monarchists think the exact opposite. A full-blown billionaire cutting a deal with the state behind closed doors and choosing for himself how much tax to pay, instead of following the laws everyone else has to obey, is to them a scandal in its own right. And beyond all of this, we reach the hidden part of the iceberg, the third piece, the family's entirely personal fortune. Take those enormous castles and palaces you're always hearing about, like Sandringham and Balmoral. They aren't actually state property. They're the personal property of the royals themselves, passed down from generation to generation. Add to that their own personal investments, world-famous works of art, priceless jewels, and what emerges is a vast private wealth, completely independent of the state and the throne. And the most mysterious part of all, the true size of this fortune is never fully disclosed. Now let's bring all three layers together. The big picture finally makes sense. On one side, the allowance they get from the state. Public money paid in exchange for handing those billions of pounds worth of estates over to the government. On the other side, the two great duchies. Private income streams that bring in tens of millions a year and run on those sweetheart tax rules applied to no one else in the world. And at the very top, the personal fortune, that hidden treasure, quietly inherited and largely kept out of sight. The reason royal finances are so confusing is that they were never designed to be simple in the first place. Over the centuries, deal has been piled on top of deal into a system so tangled that just explaining it takes up minutes of our time. And it's precisely because of this tangle that the argument never ends. To one side, this family is a magnificent self-financing institution that gives the state far more than it takes from the country. To the other, it's a colossal 250-year-old illusion that serves the interests of history, tradition, and one single family. Both sides are looking at the exact same numbers, but they stubbornly refuse to read those numbers the same way. So now that you've finally seen the whole picture, what do you think? Is the British royal family a clever bargain for this country, or a colossal bill loaded onto the public's back? Let's meet in the comments.